The slap echoed through the grand hall like a thunderclap. Mara's cheek burned, not just from the impact but from the hundreds of eyes that suddenly pierced through her like daggers. The silver tray she'd been holding clattered to the marble floor, crystal glasses shattering into 1,000 glittering pieces that seemed to mock her with their brightness. Before we continue, drop your location in the comments. And hey, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button because trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next in this tale. This story is going to take you on an emotional roller coaster you won't forget. Now, let's get back to Mara's nightmare. She stood frozen, her hand instinctively rising to her stinging face as Lady Vivian, the Alpha King's ex-girlfriend, towered over her with a cruel smile twisting her perfect features. Vivian's emerald gown shimmered under the chandelier light, making her look like a beautiful serpent ready to strike again. "That's what you get for being clumsy, Maid," Vivian hissed, her voice dripping with venom and loud enough for everyone to hear. "Perhaps if you spent less time daydreaming and more time focusing on your pathetic job, you wouldn't be such a disgrace." The banquet hall, filled with the most powerful werewolves in the kingdom, alphas, betas, council members, and visiting dignitaries, had gone deathly silent. Even the musicians in the corner had stopped playing mid-note. 200 guests watched the spectacle unfold, some with shock, others with barely concealed amusement. Mara's wolf whimpered inside her, wanting to defend herself, to fight back. But she couldn't. She was Omega-born, powerless in a world ruled by rank and dominance. Fighting back would mean death, or worse, banishment to the Forsaken Lands where rogues tore apart the weak for sport. I apologize, my lady," Mara whispered, her voice trembling as she lowered her eyes to the floor. The proper response. The safe response. The response that had kept her alive for 3 years working in the palace. But something felt different tonight. A presence, dark, powerful, and utterly commanding, shifted in the atmosphere. The air itself seemed to thicken, pressing down on everyone in the room like an invisible weight. Mara felt it before she saw him. Alpha King Damian Blackwood. He stood at the head of the hall, near his throne, and he was staring directly at her. Not at Vivian. At her. His silver eyes, the mark of the royal bloodline, blazed with something Mara had never seen before. Something that made her heart stop and restart in a frantic, terrified rhythm. Those eyes weren't just angry. They were lethal. Vivian, the Alpha King's voice cut through the silence like a blade through silk, soft, controlled, but carrying an undercurrent of danger that made even the strongest alphas in the room shift uncomfortably. "Step away from her." Vivian's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second before she recovered, tossing her long auburn hair over her shoulder. "Damian, darling, I was just correcting this clumsy girl's mistake. She nearly ruined my gown with her incompetence. I said, step away." This time, his voice carried the alpha command, the irresistible power that forced submission from any werewolf who heard it. Vivian's body moved backward involuntarily, her face flushing with humiliation as she fought against the compulsion and lost. Mara's legs trembled. She'd never heard the king use his command before, not in the 3 years she'd worked here, silently cleaning rooms and serving meals, keeping herself invisible. She'd seen him in passing, tall, devastatingly handsome, with jet black hair and a presence that made grown alphas bow their heads. But she'd never been this close to his power, never felt the full weight of his attention. And now, as he walked toward her with measured, predatory steps, she realized something terrifying. Invisibility had been her protection. And she'd just lost it. The Alpha King stopped in front of her, so close she could smell his scent, pine, smoke, and something wild that made her wolf want to simultaneously flee and submit. He reached out, and Mara flinched, expecting punishment for causing a scene, for disrupting his banquet. But his fingers were gentle as they tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his gaze. His silver eyes searched her face, lingering on the red handprint blazing across her cheek. Something flickered in those depths, something primal and possessive that made Mara's breath catch in her throat. "What's your name?" His voice was quieter now, meant only for her, but somehow it felt more intimate than a shout. "Mara, your majesty," she whispered, unable to look away from those mesmerizing eyes. "Mara," he repeated, as if tasting her name on his tongue. Then his jaw clenched, a muscle ticking in his cheek as he turned to face the crowd. His hand remained on her chin, holding her in place, making a statement she didn't understand. "Let me make something abundantly clear," the Alpha King announced, his voice now carrying to every corner of the vast hall. "This woman is under my protection. Anyone who harms her, disrespects her, or even looks at her the wrong way will answer directly to me. Is that understood?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Confused whispers. Shocked gasps. Someone dropped a glass. Vivian's face had gone white, then red, her hands clenching into fists at her sides. "Damien, you can't be serious. She's just a maid." "She is under my protection," he repeated, each word sharp as broken glass. "Which means she now ranks above you, Vivian. In fact." He paused, and a dangerous smile curved his lips, the kind of smile that promised retribution. "Mara, do you have anything you'd like to say to Lady Vivian?" Mara's mind went blank. Was this a test? A trap? She looked at the king's face, searching for answers, and found only expectation. He actually wanted her to speak. Her wolf stirred, sensing something shifting in the pack dynamics, something unprecedented. Mara's voice came out stronger than she expected. "I accept your apology, Lady Vivian." Vivian hadn't apologized. Everyone in the room knew it. But the implication was clear, she should apologize. The insult was subtle but devastating. The Alpha King's smile widened. "Actually, I think a formal apology is in order. Don't you agree, Vivian?" The room held its collective breath. Vivian's face twisted with rage and humiliation. Her hand shook as she stared at the king, at the man she'd once shared a bed with, the man she'd expected to make her queen before he'd abruptly ended their relationship 6 months ago without explanation. "You're doing this because of her?" Vivian's voice cracked. "This insignificant little." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. The king's eyes flashed with an otherworldly silver light, and his power rolled out like a tidal wave, forcing everyone except Mara to their knees. Even the strongest alphas buckled under the weight of his dominance. "Apologize," he commanded, his voice vibrating with the ancient power of his bloodline. "Or leave my kingdom before dawn and never return." The choice was clear, her pride or her entire life. Vivian knelt on the marble floor, her emerald gown pooling around her like spilled poison. Tears of rage streamed down her face as she forced out the words, "I apologize for striking you, Mara." The king's power receded slightly, allowing people to breathe again, but his hand remained on Mara's arm, a clear signal of possession that every wolf in the room recognized. "Good," he said simply. Then he turned to Mara, his expression softening in a way that made her heart flutter traitorously. "Come with me. We need to tend to your injury." He didn't wait for her response. He simply guided her toward the private corridor that led away from the grand hall, away from the shocked whispers and blazing eyes, into the shadowed unknown. As they walked, Mara's mind raced with 1,000 questions. Why had he defended her? What did his protection mean? And most terrifying of all, why had his touch made her feel things she had no right to feel for an Alpha King? Behind them, the banquet dissolved into chaos. But ahead, in the darkness of the corridor, Mara sensed something far more dangerous waiting, the truth about why the most powerful Alpha in the kingdom had just claimed a lowly maid as his own. The private corridor was lit by dim torchlight that cast dancing shadows on the stone walls. Mara's heart hammered against her ribcage as the Alpha King led her deeper into the palace's inner sanctum, areas she'd only cleaned in the early morning hours when the royals were asleep. His hand remained on her arm, firm but not painful, a constant reminder of his presence and the impossible situation she'd just been thrust into. She could still hear the muffled chaos from the grand hall behind them, voices raised in shocked speculation. "Your Majesty, Mara started, her voice barely above a whisper. "Damien," he corrected, glancing back at her with those piercing silver eyes. "When we're alone, you'll call me Damien." The informality felt dangerous, forbidden. Maids didn't use the king's first name. Ever. "I couldn't possibly." "You can, and you will." He stopped in front of an ornate door carved with wolf's mid-hunt, pulling a key from his pocket. "Everything changed the moment Vivian put her hands on you." He opened the door to reveal a private sitting room Mara had never seen before. Rich burgundy curtains framed tall windows overlooking the moonlit gardens. A fire crackled in the marble fireplace, and comfortable leather chairs sat arranged around a low table. This wasn't his throne room or the formal spaces she knew, this was personal. Intimate. Damien guided her to one of the chairs and disappeared through another door, returning moments later with a small wooden box and a basin of water. He knelt before her, the Alpha King, kneeling before a maid, and Mara's mind struggled to process the impossibility of it. "This will sting," he warned, dampening a cloth before gently pressing it to her burning cheek. Mara winced but didn't pull away. His touch was surprisingly tender for someone who commanded such devastating power. She studied his face up close for the first time, the sharp jawline, the slight scar above his left eyebrow, the way his dark hair fell across his forehead when he concentrated. He was beautiful in a brutal, masculine way that made her feel things she'd spent 3 years carefully not feeling. "Why did you do that?" The question escaped before she could stop it. "Defend me, I mean. I'm nobody. Just a maid." His hand stilled against her cheek. Those silver eyes met hers, and she saw something raw in them, something that looked almost like pain. "You're not nobody, Mara. You never were. I don't understand. Do you know why I ended things with Vivian 6 months ago?" He didn't wait for her answer. "Because I realized she was cruel. Not just ambitious or proud, but genuinely cruel to those she considered beneath her. I heard rumors about how she treated the staff, but I ignored them. I didn't want to see the truth about who I'd let into my life, into my bed." He applied a healing salve to her cheek, his fingers lingering longer than necessary. "Then 3 months ago, I was walking through the East Wing early one morning and I heard singing. The most beautiful voice I'd ever heard. I followed it and found you in the garden, tending to the roses, completely unaware you were being watched." Mara's breath caught. She remembered that morning. She often sang to herself while working, finding solace in old lullabies her mother had taught her before she died. "I started noticing you after that," Damien continued, his voice dropping lower. "The way you moved through the palace like a ghost, never causing trouble, never seeking attention. How you'd sneak extra food from the kitchens to the stray dogs behind the stables. How you'd comfort the younger maids when they cried from homesickness. You had a kindness in you that's rare in this world, especially here." He stood abruptly, as if the confession had cost him something. He walked to the window, his broad shoulders tense beneath his formal jacket. "I should have sent Vivian away the moment I ended things, but she had powerful family connections. I thought letting her stay for social events would be diplomatic." He laughed bitterly. "Clearly, I was wrong." Mara's mind reeled. The Alpha King had been watching her? Noticing her? It seemed impossible, like something from the fairy tales her mother used to tell. "But I'm Omega-born," she whispered. "I have no rank, no family name, no." "You think I care about that?" He turned to face her, and the intensity in his gaze made her shrink back into the chair. "Do you know what the mate bond feels like, Mara?" Her heart stopped. "The mate bond? It's supposed to be instant, one look, one scent, and you know. Your wolf recognizes its other half and there's no denying it. He moved closer, each step deliberate. But sometimes, it's more subtle. Sometimes it's a pull you can't explain, a need to be near someone that grows stronger every day until you can't breathe without knowing they're safe. He crouched before her again, bringing them eye level. I've spent 3 months fighting what I feel because I'm a king and you're a maid and there are rules about these things. But the moment I saw Vivian's hand connect with your face, the moment I smelled your fear and pain. His jaw clenched. My wolf took over. And my wolf doesn't care about rules or propriety or politics. He only cares about protecting what's ours. The word hung in the air between them, ours. Are you saying? Mara couldn't finish the sentence. It was too enormous, too terrifying, too wonderful. I'm saying that you're my mate, Mara. And I just publicly claimed you in front of every powerful wolf in the kingdom, which means everything is about to change. For both of us. Mara couldn't breathe. The word maid echoed in her mind like a bell that wouldn't stop ringing. The Alpha King, Damien, was claiming she was his fated mate. Her. An Omega-born maid who'd spent her entire life being invisible. That's impossible, she whispered, even as her wolf stirred with recognition, whimpering with a longing she'd never understood until this moment. I would have known. I would have felt. You suppressed it. Damien's voice was gentle but certain. Omega wolves are taught from birth to suppress everything, their instincts, their desires, their very nature. It's how you survive in a world ruled by alphas. But I felt it, Mara. From that first morning in the garden, I felt the pull. He reached for her hand, and the moment his skin touched hers, electricity sparked between them. Mara gasped as warmth flooded through her body, her wolf surging forward with sudden, desperate joy. The bond snapped into place like a lock finding its key, and suddenly she could feel him, his emotions, his presence, the fierce protectiveness radiating from his very soul. No, Mara yanked her hand back, stumbling to her feet. No, this can't be happening. You're the king. You need a queen who's powerful, educated, someone who knows how to rule. Not a maid who can barely read. Pain flashed across Damien's face. Is that what you think matters to me? It's what matters to everyone else. Mara's voice rose, panic clawing at her throat. Did you see their faces out there? They were horrified. Disgusted. An Omega as their queen? They'll never accept it. They'll never accept me. Then they'll learn to. The door burst open with a thunderous crash. 3 men stormed into the room, their faces dark with fury. Mara recognized them immediately, Alpha Alan of the Northern Territories, Beta Callan of the King's Personal Guard, and Lord Stefan, head of the Royal Council. Behind them, more council members crowded the doorway. What is the meaning of this madness? Alpha Alan demanded, his voice booming. He was a massive man with a gray-streaked beard and eyes like chips of ice. You humiliated Lady Vivian, a daughter of the Eastern clans, over a servant? Damien's posture shifted instantly. Gone was the vulnerable man who'd been confessing his feelings. In his place stood the Alpha King, radiating cold authority. I suggest you remember who you're speaking to, Alan. We remember perfectly, Lord Stefan interjected, his thin face pinched with disapproval. Which is why we're here. Your Majesty, this infatuation is going to cause a war. Infatuation? Damien's voice dropped to a dangerous purr. Choose your next words carefully, Stefan. Beta Callan stepped forward, his expression conflicted. Unlike the others, there was concern in his eyes rather than anger. Damien, please listen. Vivian's father is already sending ravens to every alpha family in the kingdom. He's calling your actions an insult to noble bloodlines everywhere. 3 packs have threatened to withdraw their allegiance. Mara's stomach twisted. This was exactly what she'd feared. She was causing a rift in the kingdom, threatening the stability Damien had worked years to maintain. Let them withdraw, Damien said coldly. Any alpha who values bloodline over loyalty has no place in my kingdom. You're not thinking clearly, Alpha Alan growled. This girl has bewitched you somehow. It's the only explanation. Damien moved so fast Mara barely saw it. One moment he was standing beside her, the next he had Alan pinned against the wall by his throat, his eyes blazing with that otherworldly silver light. Call her this girl again, Damien snarled, his voice layered with the alpha command, and I'll rip out your tongue and feed it to the crows. She is my mate. She is your future queen. And you will show her the respect she deserves, or I will find someone else to rule the Northern Territories. The room went deathly silent. Even Alan, for all his bluster, couldn't fight against the king's grip or the power radiating from him. Your mate? Lord Stefan's voice came out strangled. But she's Omega-born. The bloodline. The bloodline will be strengthened by her kindness, her resilience, and her pure heart. Damien released Alan, who stumbled backward gasping. Things this council seems to have forgotten are virtues worth preserving. Beta Callan's eyes widened with sudden understanding. You felt the mate bond. Truly felt it. Damien nodded once, his jaw set. I have. Then there's nothing to discuss, Callan said quietly, shooting warning looks at the other council members. The mate bond is sacred. It supersedes all laws of rank and bloodline. It's literally written in our oldest codes. Those codes were written when our kind was different, Lord Stefan protested. More primitive. Surely you're not suggesting. I'm not suggesting anything, Damien cut him off. I'm telling you how things will be. Mara is my mate. In 1 week's time, during the full moon, I will perform the bonding ceremony and she will become my queen. You will prepare the kingdom for this announcement, you will ensure her safety, and you will make certain that anyone who speaks against her answers to me personally. Alpha Alan wiped blood from his lip, his eyes still blazing with defiance. And what about Vivian's family? They'll call for blood debt. Then they'll join the others who've underestimated my resolve. Damien's smile was all teeth. Mara is under my protection now. That makes her untouchable. Anyone who tries to harm her will discover exactly why I've kept this kingdom safe for 10 years. The threat hung heavy in the air. Lord Stefan opened his mouth, closed it, then bowed stiffly. As you command, Your Majesty. Though I fear you're making a mistake that will cost us all. As the council members filed out, their faces dark with resentment and barely concealed fury, Mara felt the weight of what had just happened crushing down on her. She'd just become the most hated woman in the kingdom. The door clicked shut behind the last council member, leaving Mara and Damien alone in the suffocating silence. Her legs finally gave out and she collapsed back into the chair, her whole body trembling. 1 week, she whispered, staring at her hands. You gave them 1 week to accept something they'll never accept. Damien knelt before her again, taking her cold hands in his warm ones. I gave us 1 week to show them who you really are. Once they see your strength, your heart. They'll see a maid pretending to be a queen, Mara interrupted, pulling her hands away. Damien, I don't know how to rule. I don't know politics or strategy or how to navigate court intrigue. I can clean a room perfectly and arrange flowers and serve tea without spilling it, but that doesn't make me qualified to lead a kingdom. You think I knew how to be king at 22 when my father died? Damien stood, frustration evident in his tense shoulders. I learned. You'll learn. I'll teach you. In 1 week? Mara laughed bitterly. You're asking the impossible. I'm asking you to trust me. To trust the bond between us. He turned to face her, and the vulnerability in his eyes made her heart ache. Do you feel it, Mara? Truly feel it now? She wanted to lie, to deny what was humming through her veins like electricity. But she couldn't. The bond was there, undeniable and overwhelming. She could sense his emotions, his determination, his fear of losing her, his desperate need to protect her. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. I feel it, she admitted quietly. But feeling it doesn't change reality. Your people will revolt. Good wolves will die because you chose to bind yourself to someone unworthy. Don't. His command was sharp. Don't ever call yourself unworthy again. You're worth more than every pompous alpha in that council room combined. Before Mara could respond, a sharp knock interrupted them. Beta Callan entered without waiting for permission, his expression grim. We have a problem, he announced. Lady Vivian hasn't left the palace. She's in the guest wing, gathering support among the visiting nobles. She's calling tonight's events an obvious enchantment and demanding the council investigate whether Mara used dark magic to ensnare you. Mara's blood ran cold. Accusations of dark magic were serious, wolves had been executed for less. Damien's eyes flashed dangerously. Then arrest her for slander and treason. We can't. Not yet. Callan moved closer, lowering his voice. Her father is Alpha Supreme of the Eastern clans. If we imprison her without proof of actual wrongdoing, we'll give them justification for war. Right now, it's just political posturing. Make the wrong move and it becomes an actual conflict. So we do nothing? Damien's voice was lethal. We let her spread lies about my mate. We let her dig her own grave, Callan said carefully. Meanwhile, we prepare Mara. If she's going to survive the coming week, she needs to learn how to defend herself, not just physically, but politically. Mara stood on shaking legs. What do you mean, defend myself? Callan's expression softened with something like pity. They're going to test you, Mara. Every noble in this palace will try to prove you're unfit to be queen. They'll set traps, ask impossible questions, create situations designed to make you fail publicly. It's how court politics work. That's barbaric, Mara breathed. That's survival, Callan corrected. And if you want to stand beside Damien as his queen, you need to learn the rules of this game fast. He glanced at the king. With your permission, I'd like to assign someone to help her. Someone who knows the court inside and out. Who? Damien asked warily. My sister. Lyanna. Damien's eyebrows rose. The Lyanna who terrifies seasoned warriors with a single look. The very same. A hint of a smile crossed Callan's face. If anyone can prepare Mara for what's coming, it's her. She grew up navigating court politics as a beta-born female. She knows every trick, every trap, every way to turn an insult into a weapon. Mara's head spun. Everything was moving too fast. Just hours ago, she'd been invisible. Now she was supposed to become queen, learn politics, and somehow survive nobles who wanted her dead, all in 1 week. I can't do this, she whispered. I'm not strong enough. Damien was at her side instantly, his hands cupping her face gently. You are the strongest person I know. You've survived 3 years in a palace that treats omegas like dirt, and you never lost your kindness or your hope. That takes more strength than any alpha's physical power. But what if I fail? What if I embarrass you, or make things worse, or... Then we'll face it together. His thumb traced her cheekbone tenderly. I'm not asking you to be perfect, Mara. I'm asking you to be yourself. That's all I've ever wanted. A loud crash echoed from somewhere in the palace, followed by raised voices. Callan tensed, his hand moving to the sword at his hip. What now? Damien growled. A young guard burst through the door, his face pale. Your Majesty. Lady Vivian has summoned the Eastern clan warriors who came with her. They're in the courtyard, demanding satisfaction for the insult to their lady's honor. They're calling for trial by combat. Mara's heart stopped. trial by combat. She knew what that meant. Damien would have to fight Vivian's champion to prove his decision was just. And if he lost? Who's their champion? Damien asked coldly. The guard swallowed hard. Alpha Alan volunteered, Your Majesty. He claims you're unfit to rule and challenges your right to the throne itself. The room erupted into chaos. Callan cursed viciously. Damien's eyes blazed silver. And Mara realized with horrifying clarity that this wasn't just about her anymore. This was a coup. And it had only just begun. The courtyard was packed with wolves, nobles, warriors, servants, all drawn by the scent of potential bloodshed. Torches blazed against the night sky as Mara stood on the stone balcony overlooking the arena, her fingers gripping the railing so hard her knuckles turned white. Below, Damien stripped off his formal jacket, revealing the powerful muscles beneath his white shirt. Across from him, Alpha Alan did the same, his massive frame somehow looking even larger in the flickering firelight. The challenge circle had been drawn in ash, ancient tradition demanded blood be spilled on sacred ground. This is madness, Mara whispered to Callan, who stood guard beside her. Alan is twice his size. Size doesn't matter in wolf combat, Callan replied, though his jaw was tight with tension. But Alan is old guard, he trained Damien's father. He knows every move Damien will make before he makes it. Mara's wolf howled inside her, desperate to protect their mate. But she was powerless here, forced to watch while politics and pride demanded violence. Lady Vivian stood on the opposite balcony, flanked by her father, Alpha Supreme Darius of the Eastern clans. He was an imposing man with silver hair and eyes like frozen lakes. When his gaze found Mara, she saw nothing but cold calculation. People of the Blackwood Kingdom, Darius's voice boomed across the courtyard. We gathered tonight because your king has lost his way. Seduced by dark magic, he's elevated an omega made above noble bloodlines. He's insulted ancient tradition and threatens our very way of life. Alpha Alan fights not for personal glory, but to save this kingdom from disgrace. Cheers erupted from parts of the crowd. Not everyone, Mara noticed some wolves looking uncomfortable, uncertain. But enough voices rose in support to make her blood run cold. Damien's eyes found hers across the distance. Through the bond, she felt his resolve, his unwavering certainty. But underneath it, she felt something else, a secret he was keeping, a weight he carried alone. Trust me, his voice echoed in her mind through the mate bond. No matter what happens, trust me. Before she could respond, the fight began. Alan lunged first, his shifted claws extended, moving with terrifying speed for a man his age. Damien dodged, but barely. Alan's claws caught his shirt, tearing fabric and drawing blood. The crowd roared. Mara's heart stopped. They circled each other, two predators looking for weakness. Alan struck again, a brutal combination that drove Damien backward. Another hit landed, this one across Damien's ribs. He stumbled, and Mara felt his pain spike through the bond. He's holding back, Callan muttered, confusion coloring his voice. Why is he holding back? Mara felt it too, Damien wasn't fighting at full strength. But why? Alan pressed his advantage, landing blow after punishing blow. Blood stained Damien's torn shirt. The crowd's energy shifted, sensing weakness. Wolves who'd seemed uncertain before now murmured in agreement with Darius's words. Perhaps the king has grown soft, Vivian called out, her voice dripping with false concern. Perhaps he truly is compromised. Damien went down on one knee, breathing hard. Alan stood over him, triumph blazing in his eyes. Yield, Alan commanded. Yield, and I'll spare your life. Step down peacefully and let wolves who remember the old ways guide this kingdom back to strength. Mara's wolf screamed. Without thinking, she pushed past Callan and ran down the stairs, ignoring his shouts. She had to stop this. She had to. I accept his yield. Mara shouted, bursting into the circle. The crowd gasped. She wasn't supposed to be here. No one interrupted a challenge circle. Please, stop this. I'll leave. I'll go back to being a maid. Just don't hurt him anymore. Tears streamed down her face as she knelt beside Damien, her hands hovering over his wounds, desperate to help but not knowing how. Damien's eyes met hers, and suddenly she saw it. He wasn't weak. He wasn't defeated. His eyes blazed with sharp intelligence and something that looked almost like satisfaction. Mara, he said softly, for her ears alone. Do you love me? The question caught her completely off guard. What? Do you love me enough to trust me, even when it looks like I'm losing? Yes, she whispered, the truth escaping before she could think. Yes, I love you. Which is why you need to yield. Please. A smile curved his bloodied lips. That's all I needed to hear. Then everything happened at once. Damien surged to his feet with explosive speed, his hand shooting out to grip Alan's wrist in an iron hold. His eyes flashed pure silver, not just the color of his bloodline, but the ancient power that marked the true royal alpha. You wanted to see if I was compromised, Damien's voice rang out, layered with power. You wanted to test whether love had made me weak. Well, here's your answer. Power exploded from him in a visible wave. Alan dropped to his knees, unable to fight the royal command. Around the courtyard, every wolf, alpha, beta, and omega alike, felt the crushing weight of absolute dominance. I let you hit me, Damien continued, his voice deadly calm. I let you think you were winning because I needed to prove something. Not to you, to her. He looked at Mara, his eyes softening. I needed her to see that I would rather bleed than give her up. That I would rather face death than lose her. He released Alan and addressed the crowd. You think love makes me weak? Love makes me unstoppable. Because now I don't just fight for a kingdom, I fight for her. And there's no force in this world that can defeat an alpha protecting his mate. Mara's breath caught as the truth crashed over her. This had been a test, not of his strength, but of her heart. And she'd just confessed her love in front of everyone. Darius stepped forward, his expression unreadable. That was quite a performance, King Damien. But power and passion don't change facts. The girl is still Omega-born. Still my daughter. Every head whipped toward the new voice. An elegant woman emerged from the shadows, silver hair, regal bearing, and eyes exactly like Damien's. The former queen. Damien's mother, who'd been in seclusion since his father's death. What? Mara breathed. The queen smiled sadly. 23 years ago, I had an affair. I'm not proud of it, but I was young and your father the king was cold. The man I loved was Omega-born, and when I discovered I was pregnant, I knew the child would be seen as weak, unworthy of protection. So I gave her to a trusted maid to raise far from court. Her eyes filled with tears. I gave her to you, Mara. Because you were never just a maid. You're a princess. My daughter. And Damien's half-sister. The world tilted sideways. The courtyard erupted into chaos. Wolves shouted over each other, their voices blending into a roar of confusion and outrage. Mara couldn't hear any of it over the rushing in her ears, the way her entire world was collapsing like a house of cards. Sister. The word echoed in her mind like a death knell. She looked at Damien, at the man she'd just confessed to loving, the man whose bond hummed through her veins like a song. His face had gone white as snow, his silver eyes wide with the same horror she felt. No, Damien whispered, backing away from his mother. You're lying. This is another political game, another manipulation. I wish I were, Queen Helena's voice broke. But I've kept this secret for 23 years, and I can't anymore. Not when it's tearing you apart. Mara is your half-sister, Damien. Which means the mate bond you feel. She closed her eyes. It's impossible. It can't exist between blood relatives. It's forbidden by the moon goddess herself. Mara's legs gave out. She would have fallen if Callan hadn't caught her, his strong arms the only thing keeping her upright. Through the bond, that cursed, impossible bond, she felt Damien's anguish mirror her own. Then what is this? Damien shouted, his voice raw with pain. He pressed his hand to his chest. What is this connection I feel? What are these emotions that aren't my own? Perhaps a trick, Alpha Darius suggested, his voice oily with false sympathy. Dark magic, as my daughter suggested. Or perhaps simple obsession mistaken for something sacred. It's not obsession. Mara found her voice, though it came out strangled. I feel it too. The pull, the connection, it's real. Then it's an abomination, Lord Stefan declared, his thin face twisted with disgust. The moon goddess does not make mistakes. True mates cannot be siblings. Which means this bond is either false or cursed. Vivian stepped forward, her earlier humiliation replaced with vindicated triumph. I told you she'd bewitched him. This proves it. She should be tried for witchcraft and... Enough. Queen Helena's command silenced the crowd. She descended the stairs with regal grace, moving toward Mara. Up close, Mara could see the similarities, the shape of their eyes, the curve of their lips. Features she'd never questioned because she'd never had reason to. I have proof, Helena said quietly, producing a small medallion from her gown. It was silver, engraved with the royal crest. This belonged to your real father. I gave it to the maid who raised you, instructed her to give it to you when you turned 18. Mara's hand flew to her throat, to the medallion she'd worn every day since her 18th birthday. The maid who'd raised her, the woman she'd called mother, had given it to her on her deathbed, saying only that your real family wants you to have this. She'd thought it was a family heirloom. She'd never imagined. No, Mara whispered, tears streaming down her face. This can't be true. The bond, Damien and I. Are siblings, Helena finished gently. I'm so sorry, my dear. But it's the truth. Through their connection, Mara felt Damien's heart shattering. The bond that had felt like destiny now felt like a curse. Every touch they'd shared, every moment of tenderness, every feeling of rightness, all of it was wrong. Forbidden. Impossible. I need to go, Mara choked out, pulling away from Callan. I need to, I can't. She ran. Pushed through the crowd of gawking wolves, ignoring their whispers and stares. She ran through the palace corridors, past the rooms she'd cleaned 1,000 times, past the life she'd thought she might have. Behind her, she heard Damien calling her name, felt his desperation through the bond. But she couldn't face him. Couldn't look at him without seeing the truth of what they'd almost done. She found herself in the garden where he'd first heard her sing, the place where this impossible connection had begun. The roses were in full bloom, their sweet scent mocking her with memories of innocence. Mara collapsed among the flowers, her body shaking with sobs. Her wolf howled inside her, confused and grieving, unable to understand why their mate was now forbidden to them. Mara. She looked up to find Damien standing at the garden's edge, his face ravaged with pain. He took a step toward her and stopped, as if an invisible wall stood between them. Don't, she whispered. Please don't come closer. I can't, if you touch me, I don't know what I'll do. The bond is still there, he said hoarsely. I can still feel you. How is that possible if we're... I don't know. Mara wrapped her arms around herself. Maybe your mother is wrong. Maybe the medallion doesn't mean what she thinks. She had the royal physicians perform a blood test while you were running. Callan appeared behind Damien, his expression grave. They compared samples from the Queen's private collection. The results are definitive. You share 50% of your blood with Damien. Your siblings. The final thread of hope snapped. Then we'll break the bond, Damien said desperately. There must be a way. Ancient rituals, magic. The mate bond can't be broken, Callan said quietly. Not without killing both parties. You know this, Damien. Then what are we supposed to do? Damien's voice broke. I can feel her pain like it's my own. I need her like I need air to breathe. How do I live with this? Mara forced herself to stand on shaking legs. Through her tears, she made herself say the words that would destroy them both. You'll find another queen. Someone appropriate, someone you can actually be with. Each word felt like swallowing glass. And I'll leave. Tonight. I'll go far away where the bond might fade with distance. Mara, no. It's the only way. She looked at him one last time, memorizing every detail of his face. Goodbye, Damien. I'm sorry I wasn't who you needed me to be. She walked past him, past Callan, past the life she'd dreamed of for one beautiful, impossible night. Behind her, she felt Damien collapse to his knees among the roses. And the bond between them screamed in agony. Mara made it as far as the palace gates before a hand grabbed her arm. She spun to find a woman with sharp features and piercing green eyes, Lyanna, Beta Callan's sister. Where do you think you're going? Lyanna demanded. Away. I have to leave before, Mara's voice broke. Through the bond, she could still feel Damien's anguish, a constant knife in her heart. Before you think clearly? Lyanna's grip tightened. Come with me. Now. I can't stay here. It's too painful, and everyone knows. That the Queen just made a very convenient claim with very convenient timing? Lyanna's eyes glittered dangerously. Come. We need to talk somewhere private. Too exhausted to argue, Mara let herself be led to a small tower room she'd never seen before. Inside, Lyanna locked the door and pulled out a leather-bound journal, slamming it onto the table. I've been the royal historian for 7 years, Lyanna said. Which means I know every birth, death, and secret in this kingdom's records. And Queen Helena's story has more holes than a moth-eaten dress. Mara's heart stuttered. What do you mean? The Queen claimed she had an affair 23 years ago and gave you away. But 23 years ago, the Queen was on a diplomatic mission to the Northern Territories for 6 months. She was never alone, constantly surrounded by witnesses. Lyanna flipped open the journal, pointing to detailed entries. Furthermore, the maid who supposedly raised you, Anita, was working in the Eastern Clan territories at that time, not anywhere near the royal palace. Hope, dangerous and fragile, flickered in Mara's chest. Then she's lying? She's definitely lying. The question is why? Lyanna began pacing. Nothing about this makes sense. The mate bond doesn't make mistakes, it's sacred, granted by the moon goddess herself. It can't exist between blood siblings. It's magically impossible. But the blood test can be faked. Especially if someone with access to royal blood wanted to create false results. Lyanna's eyes narrowed. Think about it, Mara. Who benefits most from you and Damien being separated? Vivian, Mara whispered. And her father, Alpha Darius. If Damien can't have me, he'll be forced to choose a politically advantageous match. Like Vivian. Exactly. And the Queen, for all her power, has been under Darius's influence since the old king died. He provides her protection, resources, political support. He could have pressured her into this lie. A knock on the door made them both freeze. Lyanna opened it to reveal Callan, his face grim. We have a problem, he said. Damien's locked himself in his chambers and won't come out. His mother is with the council now, formally announcing that she's dissolving his engagement claim to Mara due to the blood relation. They're already discussing potential matches with other noble families. What about Damien? Mara asked desperately. What does he say? Callan's expression softened with pity. He's not saying anything. Through the door, all I can hear is. He hesitated. The bond is destroying him, Mara. I've never seen an alpha like this. It's like he's dying from the inside out. Mara's wolf howled, desperate to go to their mate. But what could she do? If the queen was lying, they needed proof. If she wasn't. The medallion, Mara said suddenly, pulling it from her neck. The queen said this belonged to my father. If we can find out who really owned it. Lioness snatched it from her hands, examining it closely. Her eyes widened. This isn't a royal medallion. The craftsmanship is similar, but the crest is slightly different. This is. She grabbed a magnifying glass from her desk. This is an Eastern clan design. Specifically, one given to high-ranking warriors. So my father was from the Eastern clans? Mara's mind raced. Why would the queen lie about that? Because, a new voice spoke from the doorway, she's not your mother at all. They all turned to see an elderly woman with kind eyes and silver-streaked hair. She wore simple clothes but carried herself with quiet dignity. Anita? Mara gasped. The maid who'd raised her, who she'd thought was dead. I'm alive, child. And I'm sorry for the deception. Anita stepped into the room, her eyes wet with tears. Your real mother was my sister, Marina. She was a healer from the Eastern clans who fell in love with a warrior, the man who owned that medallion. His name was Richard. Why didn't you tell me? Mara whispered. Because Richard was murdered by Darius when he discovered their love. Marina died giving birth to you, heartbroken and alone. I took you in, brought you here to protect you from Darius's reach. Anita's voice shook. But somehow he's discovered who you are. That medallion, it belonged to his greatest rival, the man who should have been Alpha Supreme instead of him. Lioness cursed. This is about revenge. Darius is using Mara to hurt Damien and settle an old blood debt at the same time. So I'm not Damien's sister? Mara's heart thundered. No, child. You share no blood with the royal family at all. Anita pulled out a worn scroll. I have your true birth records here. They prove everything. Mara snatched the scroll, hope blazing through her like wildfire. We need to show this to Damien. Now. It won't be enough, Callan warned. The queen made her declaration publicly. She won't recant without proof that she was lying, proof that implicates Darius. Otherwise, it's just your word against the queen's. Then we get that proof, Mara said, her voice steady for the first time in hours. Whatever it takes. Through the bond, she felt Damien stir, as if sensing her renewed determination. She sent him a pulse of emotion, hope, love, and an unspoken promise. Hold on. I'm coming for you. His response came back weak but certain, always. The game had changed. Now they weren't just fighting for love. They were fighting for truth. The council chamber was packed when Mara burst through the doors, flanked by Lioness, Callan, and Anita. Every noble head turned toward her, their expressions ranging from shock to contempt. At the head of the table sat Queen Helena, with Alpha Darius on her right, looking supremely satisfied. Vivian stood behind her father, her smile venomous. How dare you interrupt a council session, Maid? Guards, remove. I'm not a maid, Mara's voice rang out clear and strong. And I'm not the queen's daughter. I'm here to expose the lies that were told tonight and the man who orchestrated them. Darius's face remained impassive, but Mara saw his fingers tighten on his chair. Bold accusations from a girl with no proof. Oh, I have proof. Mara slammed Anita's scroll onto the table. My true birth records, showing I'm the daughter of Marina and Richard, the warrior you murdered 23 years ago because he challenged your claim to be Alpha Supreme of the Eastern clans. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Darius's mask slipped for just a moment, fury flashing in his cold eyes. Ridiculous, he said smoothly. An old scroll proves nothing. It could easily be forged. Then explain this. Lyanna stepped forward with her own documents. Queen Helena's detailed travel records from 23 years ago, proving she was never in a position to have an affair or give birth in secret. Cross-referenced with palace physician records showing she underwent a medical procedure that left her unable to bear children after Damien's birth. The Queen's face went white. Lord Stefan leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. Your Majesty, is this true? Helena opened her mouth, closed it. Her hands trembled as she looked at Darius, then back at the council. I thought I was protecting. She was protecting herself, Callan interrupted, his voice hard. From blackmail. Tell them, Your Majesty. Tell them what Darius threatened you with if you didn't make that false claim tonight. That's quite enough, Darius stood abruptly, his power radiating through the room. These are desperate lies from desperate people trying to legitimize an inappropriate relationship. The relationship is perfectly appropriate. Mara shouted. Because we're not related. The mate bond doesn't lie. The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes. And you knew that, which is why you had to fabricate this entire story. You have no proof I did anything. Actually, we do. Everyone turned as Damien entered the chamber, looking haggard but fierce. His silver eyes burned with barely contained rage. Behind him walked a hooded figure who threw back their cloak to reveal a young woman with terrified eyes. This is Haley, Damien announced. One of the royal physicians who conducted the blood test tonight. Tell them what you told me, Haley. The woman's voice shook. Alpha Darius came to me 3 days ago. He said he had information that would ruin my family if I didn't cooperate. He gave me vials of blood, his own blood and Queen Helena's, and told me to use them instead of the King's and Mara's samples. He said to report that they were siblings. She's lying. Vivian shrieked. Father would never. I have the original vials, Haley produced 2 small glass containers. I kept them because I was afraid. I knew falsifying royal blood tests was treason, but he threatened my younger brothers. I'm sorry, Your Majesty. I'm so sorry. Damien's jaw clenched. Callan, arrest Alpha Darius for conspiracy, blackmail, falsifying official records, and treason against the crown. You can't arrest me, Darius snarled, his power exploding outward. I am Alpha Supreme of the Eastern clans. I have armies at my command. Touch me and you'll start a war that will tear this kingdom apart. Then we'll have that war, Damien's voice was deadly calm. Because I won't let you manipulate my throne, terrorize my people, or separate me from my mate 1 second longer. He moved to stand beside Mara, taking her hand. The moment their skin touched, the bond flared to life, stronger, clearer, undeniable. Every wolf in the room felt the power of it, the sacred truth of a genuine mate connection. This bond is blessed by the moon goddess herself, Damien announced. And any wolf who questions it questions her divine will. Lord Stefan stood slowly, his earlier hostility replaced with awe. I feel it. By the goddess, I actually feel the power of a true mate bond. He turned to Darius, his expression cold. You would have had us deny a sacred blessing for your own political gain. Other council members stood, their faces hardening with understanding and anger. The tide was turning. This is madness. Vivian's voice rose hysterically. She's nothing. An Omega with no family, no power, no. She's everything, Damien cut her off, his eyes never leaving Mara's face. She's kind where we're cruel. She's strong where we're weak. She sees the good in people when we only see pawns. And she's my mate, chosen by fate, blessed by the goddess, and loved by me with everything I am. Mara's eyes filled with tears. Through the bond, she felt his absolute certainty, his unwavering devotion. I love you too, she whispered. I never stopped, even when I thought it was wrong. It was never wrong, Damien said softly. It was always right. Darius made a desperate move toward the door, but Callan and his guards blocked the way. You're not leaving, Alpha Darius. You'll face trial for your crimes. My daughter had nothing to do with this. Darius tried one last gambit. Vivian is innocent. I knew, Vivian said flatly, her mask finally cracking. I knew everything. I helped plan it. Because I couldn't stand watching him look at her the way he never looked at me. The admission hung in the air like a death sentence. Take them both, Damien commanded. They'll be tried according to pack law. As guards surrounded Darius and Vivian, dragging them from the chamber, Damien turned to his mother. The queen looked small and broken in her chair. You have until dawn to leave the palace, Damien said quietly. Consider it mercy for giving birth to me. But you're no longer welcome here. Helena nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, my son. I was weak, and I hurt you both. I hope someday you can forgive me. She left without another word. Damien turned to Mara, cupping her face in his hands. I believe we have a bonding ceremony to plan. That is, if you'll still have me. Mara laughed through her tears. Try to stop me. He kissed her then, in front of the entire council, sealing their bond with a promise that no one would ever break again. 1 week later, the full moon hung heavy and luminous in the midnight sky, bathing the sacred grove in silver light. Ancient trees formed a natural cathedral, their branches woven with white roses and moonflowers. Every wolf in the kingdom had gathered to witness what many were already calling the most legendary bonding ceremony in centuries. Mara stood at the edge of the clearing, her heart thundering with a mixture of nerves and joy. She wore a gown of flowing white silk that Lyanna had designed, simple yet elegant, embroidered with silver thread that caught the moonlight. Her dark hair fell in loose waves down her back, crowned with a wreath of forget-me-nots. Ready? Anita appeared beside her, squeezing her hand. In the past week, Mara had learned so much about her real family, about her mother Marina's kindness, her father Richard's courage, and the love story that had created her. It didn't erase the pain of never knowing them, but it filled the hollow spaces in her heart with understanding. I'm terrified, Mara admitted with a shaky laugh. What if I mess up the words? What if I trip? What if? What if you just let yourself be happy? Anita smiled. You've earned this, child. Both of you have. Music began, a haunting melody played on ancient instruments that had witnessed countless bondings over centuries. Mara took a deep breath and stepped into the clearing. The crowd parted like water, every eye on her. But she only saw him. Damien stood in the center of the sacred grove, beneath the oldest tree, the hard oak, where legend said the moon goddess herself had blessed the first mated pair. He wore traditional ceremonial robes of deep midnight blue, his dark hair gleaming in the moonlight, his silver eyes locked on her with such intensity that Mara felt the bond between them sing with recognition. As she walked toward him, she saw the journey they'd taken reflected in his gaze, the pain, the fear, the impossible obstacles they'd overcome. But more than that, she saw their future stretching out bright and infinite. When she reached him, Damien took her hands, and the world narrowed to just the two of them. Mara, he said, his voice carrying through the grove. 1 week ago, I nearly lost you to lies and manipulation. I thought my heart would stop beating, that life without you wasn't worth living. In those dark hours, I realized something, you didn't just become my mate the night we met. You've been saving me in small ways for 3 years, with your kindness, your songs, Your gentle spirit that reminded me what it meant to be good. Tears spilled down Mara's cheeks as he continued, you taught me that strength isn't just about power or dominance. It's about choosing compassion when the world demands cruelty. It's about staying soft when everything tries to make you hard. You are the strongest person I know, and I am honored beyond measure to call you my mate, my queen, and my heart. The elder stepped forward, an ancient wolf with eyes that had seen generations rise and fall. Mara, child of Marina and Richard, do you accept this bond? Do you pledge yourself to Damien Blackwood, to stand beside him in light and darkness, in joy and sorrow, until the moon goddess calls you home? Mara's voice rang clear and certain. I do. With everything I am. Then speak your truth, the elder instructed. Mara gazed up at Damien, her heart so full it ached. I was invisible for so long that I forgot I could be seen. You saw me, Damien. Not just looked at me, but truly saw me, my fears, my dreams, my worth. You fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. You chose me when the world said I wasn't enough. Her voice trembled with emotion. I don't know how to be a queen yet. I'll probably make mistakes and stumble and do things wrong. But I promise to love you fiercely, to stand by your side through every storm, and to remind you every day that you are the best man I've ever known. You are my home, Damien. You always will be. The elder raised his hands to the moon. By the ancient laws, by the sacred bond, by the blessing of the moon goddess herself, I declare these souls joined. What the goddess has bound, let no force tear asunder. Damien pulled Mara close and kissed her as the crowd erupted in howls of celebration. The bond between them blazed bright as sunlight, their souls intertwining completely. Mara felt his emotions as clearly as her own, his overwhelming love, his fierce protectiveness, his absolute certainty that she was his forever. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and laughing, Lioness stepped forward with a silver circlet. As is tradition, the new queen must be crowned. Damien took the circlet and placed it gently on Mara's head. All hail Queen Mara Blackwood, blessed by the moon goddess, chosen by fate, and beloved by her people. All hail Queen Mara, the crowd roared, their voices echoing through the forest. Later, as the celebration feast filled the palace halls with music and laughter, Mara found herself on the balcony overlooking the gardens, the same gardens where Damien had first heard her sing. He joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. What are you thinking about, my queen? How strange life is, Mara said softly. A week ago, I was a maid trying to stay invisible. Now I'm queen, married to the most wonderful man in the kingdom, and somehow I'm happy. Truly, completely happy. Get used to it, Damien murmured against her neck, making her shiver. Because I plan to spend the rest of our lives making sure you stay that way. What happened to Darius and Vivian? Mara asked. She'd been so caught up in ceremony preparations that she hadn't followed the trial. Darius was stripped of his title and exiled. The Eastern clans have elected a new Alpha Supreme, one who's already pledged loyalty to our throne. Damien's voice hardened slightly. Vivian was given a choice, exile or service. She chose to join a convent in the Northern Territories, dedicating her life to helping orphan children. That's surprisingly noble, Mara said. She said she wanted to try becoming the person she should have been. Damien shrugged. I don't know if she'll succeed, but I believe in second chances. Because I gave you one? Because you taught me that people can change if they truly want to. He turned her to face him, his eyes soft. You've changed this entire kingdom, Mara. Already I've received letters from Omega families, saying their children have new hope. That they can dream bigger dreams now. Mara's heart swelled. I want to do more. I want to create schools, opportunities, protection for those who have none. I want every Omega to know they matter. Then we'll do it together, Damien promised. Every dream, every goal, every crazy idea you have, we'll make it real. Inside the palace, music swelled. Callan appeared at the balcony door, grinning. The pack is demanding their first dance from the king and queen. You two planning to join your own celebration? Damien looked at Mara, his eyes dancing with amusement. What do you say, my love? Ready to show them how a true queen dances? Mara laughed, taking his hand. With you? Always. As they walked back into the light and warmth and joy of their new life, Mara sent a silent thank you to the moon goddess. For the bond that had seemed impossible. For the love that had conquered every obstacle. For the future that stretched out before them, bright and infinite and theirs. She had been invisible once. But now, standing beside her maid as his equal and as queen, Mara had never felt more seen. And it was perfect. Thank you so much for watching this incredible journey. If you enjoyed Mara and Damien's story, please hit that like button and subscribe for more emotional werewolf romance tales. Drop a comment telling me which part was your favorite. I love hearing from you. Where are you watching from? And what kind of story should I tell next? Your support means the world to me. Until next time, keep believing in true love and never forget, you are never too small to make a big impact. See you in the next story.